This new moon and spring equinox, marking the beginning of the true astrological new year, is bringing amplified energetic support around things like fresh starts, taking initiative, and shedding any stagnant winter energy, along with getting clear on what you'd like to create in the new year. Now, if you're someone who hasn't fully resonated with the current Gregorian calendar's New Year's resolutions that tend to happen in the dead of winter when we see that most land animals are hibernating, resting, or taking shelter, then the spring equinox is likely what you're truly aligned with. And it's here to help us usher in fresh, new, budding ideas and approaches, just as we see the budding flowers and baby plants taking root at this time. By the way, hello friends. It's Alina back for another lunar energy reading for this upcoming new moon in the very driven fire sign of Aries. So in this video, we'll talk ways to embrace and align with the astrological and seasonal shifts happening at this time, along with top transits. And of course, at the end, I'll offer some custom new moon writing prompts so we can journal and reflect and set intentions together. And with that said, let's dive in. As many of you already know, new moons mark the beginning of a new lunar cycle, where we see that the moon is virtually invisible in the night sky because there is none of the sun's light being reflected on it. This is seen as the lowest energetic point in the lunar cycle, and there's nowhere to go but up from here. The new moon is a beautiful time to rest, reflect on the previous lunar cycle, or in this case, the previous season as well, and set intentions for the next one ahead. The new moon is a beautiful cosmic reminder that we can always start fresh, just as we see reflected in nature and the cosmos. And just as we see that the light builds on the moon's surface all the way to its energetic and light peak at the full moon, so too can the momentum and energy around intention set right now build along with it. This is why you see many people doing new moon rituals. And with this new moon happening the day after the spring equinox, which marks the true astrological new year, we're being energetically supported to finally implement and really sort of put into action any New Year's resolutions that might have resonated with you over the previous season. Now, with this new moon being in the powerful sign of Aries, it will be an optimal time for committing to goals in alignment with qualities that of Aries. That being taking charge of our lives, being more assertive with our needs and intentions, stepping into our courage, and starting brand new endeavors. All right, next up, let's talk transits surrounding this lunation. So first up, we have to extend a special happy birthday and happy birthday season to all of our Aries friends, as we see that the sun will be entering the sign of Aries on March 20th, marking the spring equinox, zodiac new year, and the start of Aries season. Now, this season is a time of renewal, fresh starts, and making room for new beginnings. Now, as the sun enters this fiery, action-oriented sign of Aries, it can be a time of, as mentioned before, renewal, new beginnings, more drive, fresh starts, making it an overall very optimal time for initiating any projects, taking risks, and asserting our independence, which are all qualities of Aries. And with there being the new moon in the sign of Aries the following day, we see this unified energy of support for finally putting goals, ideas, or even just curiosities that might have been developing throughout the winter into action. Now, if New Year's resolutions that usually happen around the end of December, beginning of January don't really resonate with you, that's completely understandable. As mentioned in the intro of this video, resolutions and all of these things are done in alignment with the Gregorian calendar, which was shifted from the true astrological spring equinox and New Year, that being in the spring. So as we see, nature doesn't really reflect fresh starts, does it? And we as human beings are just as a part of nature as everything else on this planet. And it's only culturally that we have been influenced to think that we're always separate. And so if you notice that you didn't really resonate with winter resolutions or anything like that, now this is because spring is the true new year, and it's reflected in nature through the new life that sprouts, blooms, and buds at this time. Now, in traditional Chinese medicine, for example, the spring season is a time for detoxification and clearing the winter stagnant energy. And we'll talk more about this in the ways to align with this lunation section, but I wanted to mention that. But overall, if this information around living in alignment with the seasons and cosmos resonates with you, and you'd like to learn more about seasonal foods, spring wellness practices from around the world, spring spells, and more, then be sure to check out the 2023 Auralign Astrology Planner. It's my creation, and it's a perfect buy for yourself or your friends to kickstart the true astrological new year, and it's on sale now for basically free, thanks to a BOGO sale that we're having, where if you buy one of our 2023 wall calendars, you get a free planner, which is basically like $22. All the links will be in the video description. Be sure to follow the instructions for the discount code that'll be on the website, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to mention that, but I digress. All right, next up, if you've been working to clear any stagnant energy, maybe procrastination, or you're working through something that feels a bit stale, this new moon that will be sextiling Pluto will be of help. Now, with this type of transit, when we see Pluto amplifying the moon's influences to bring deeper rooted emotions and intuitive inklings to the surface, for anyone working on something that is rooted in the subconscious or feels like maybe like a non-starter, this is the type of transit that can really facilitate rebirth and new starts. And this is excellent timing considering that we are entering the astrological new year globally and the spring season here in the Northern Hemisphere. Now, with this type of transit facilitating deeper rooted renewal and connection to our inner worlds, emotions can tend to be a bit high, so it can be easier to both sense how people are feeling around us, as well as influence the energy in the spaces that you inhabit. Now, this is because, again, we see the moon, that's the astral body that directly impacts our inner world, our emotions, relationships, and intuition, along with how we fundamentally connect with one another, having this very amplifying sextile with Pluto, the planet of conviction, passion, and sometimes even aggression. So overall, if you identify with anything that I've described, this new moon can be a very energetically supportive time for exploring our deeper rooted motivations, our subconscious ideas, and how we can start fresh with an evolved approach to anything that might have felt stagnant or devoid of energy to complete or put intentions into. Now, what comes to mind here is any sort of New Year's resolutions or goals or any lists that you laid out that you wanted to put more energy into in 2023. This transit, along with the new moon and the equinox, can be an optimal time for kickstarting those things. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that on the day of the spring equinox, on the day of the new moon, we are a brand new person and we need to take on all these brand new goals. That is so unsustainable. And in case you didn't already hear this from anybody else, I am here to tell you that that is completely a cultural expectation. That's not really, if you think about living in alignment with nature, do you see the trees and the bushes that have no leaves on them in the wintertime, boom, have budding leaves and flowers on the day of the spring equinox? Absolutely not. They phase into that. They steadily move into that. And so too are the habits and ideals and routines that end up sticking with us that we currently have, that we want to take on or release. It steadily comes and it steadily goes. And so when we learn to work with that steady phasing in, phasing out, just like we see in the moon, rising of the tides, lowering of the tides, this steady process, that is when we can build more confidence in ourselves because we realize, oh, I am capable of doing this. I was just looking at it from a very unrealistic perspective. So with all of that said, with this transit, I just want to remind you that the start of the spring equinox, the new moon, does not need to equate to you taking on all of those New Year's resolutions that you feel might be devoid of energy or you feel like there's stagnant energy around. This is an opportunity to bring life into it. And that can look like journaling about it, asking yourself, what were the intentions that I set and why did I maybe not dive more into it. Was it because I didn't have time? Was it because it was intimidating? Was it because it's out of my comfort zone and I thought out of the box like I should, but now it's a matter of getting comfortable with actually embodying who I want to be? I can continue, but in alignment with this new moon and the spring equinox, there's just so much supportive energy around exploring these things right now and just bringing and building momentum around it. And I'm really excited to see what you create, to see what blooms this season for you. Okay, moving right along. This next transit might be a bit challenging when it comes to matters of the ego, but ultimately it's rooted in highlighting areas that are calling for healing and attention. And that's to put it in a constructive light. So at the time of this lunation, we'll be seeing that the sun will be in a square aspect with Mars. So on a collective level with this type of transit, we might see that people in power might be more openly pulling further to assert or display their dominance, whether that be world powers or more local political spaces, our bosses, parents, or any sort of authority figures. And from a more personal perspective, we might notice that people around us or even ourselves have more inner conflict when it comes to our ego and wanting to assert one's status, value, or dominance. Now, this is because we see that the sun, our central star that directly impacts our sense of self, individuality, and ego, will be having this very friction-filled square aspect with Mars, the planet of courage, assertiveness, dominance, and action. So we see these two planets having this aspect that can tend to bring heightened friction and sometimes even tension or even roadblocks in the areas of our lives that these astral bodies or these planets impact. So overall, if you notice that yourself or others might seem more egoically sensitive at this time, just remember to pause, process, and potentially even remove yourself from the situation if necessary, as this energy will pass and is ultimately rooted in revealing any spaces within ourselves that might need more love and room to explore why we might feel threatened to begin with. Now, can we say that politicians and leaders will do the same? All I can say is, I hope so. And by the way, if you've made it this far into the video and you're enjoying it, then be sure to hit the subscribe button, support your girl, and hit that bell notification, because I not only make regular videos for every full and new moon for energy readings, but I also do custom guided meditations for the full new moons along with the upcoming spring equinox. All right, and finally, Mars squaring Neptune at the time of this new moon. Now, this is the type of transit that can sometimes bring a bit of confusion, a calling for even escapism, or sometimes even overthinking things when it comes to taking action. Now, this is because Mars, the planet of action and drive, will be having a sort of friction-filled square aspect with Neptune, the planet of illusion and imagination. So overall, just getting clear on the direction that you'd like to take coming into this new astrological year, staying grounded and avoiding just overthinking will be what will help you the most during this time. All right, next up, let's talk ways to align with this energy. Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind, especially for the spring season, are expansion spells. So the spring can be a very auspicious time for working spells of expansion. And this is because just as we see that new plants and animals expand and bloom at this time, so too can our intentions. So focusing our spells on the expansion of happiness, health, wealth, love, and luck can be very energetically supported at this time. All right, next up, let's dive into collective perspective. This is a new segment that I've created where we dive into the collective perspective of the astrological and seasonal shifts happening around us relative to volunteer and humanitarian work that is energetically aligned. Now, as mentioned before, the spring equinox marks the beginning of the astrological new year and symbolizes rebirth, renewal, and growth. So, two types of community services that are in alignment with these themes are: one, participating in environmental cleanup efforts to help restore the earth. Many organizations host environmental cleanup events in public parks, beaches, and other natural areas during the spring equinox specifically, which is pretty cool. Now, these events typically involve picking up litter, removing invasive plant species, and planting native species back into the area to help restore the natural habitat. Another example is volunteering at a local community garden or farm to support sustainable agriculture and provide access to fresh, healthy food. Now, many cities have community gardens, which is really awesome, or urban farms where people can volunteer to help plant and maintain fruits, vegetables, and herbs. Sometimes you can even take some home. Now, this is a great way to connect with nature and contribute to the local community by promoting sustainability and healthy living. Now, a few ways to find volunteer opportunities like these include searching online for local community service organizations, checking with city or town government websites, asking friends or family members for recommendations, or just visiting your local community centers or libraries for information on volunteer opportunities. I think that either of these ideas could be a great way to get outside with friends as well if you'd like to invite people, so it could be pretty fun. I've left some links to connect with different community service organizations in the video description, so go ahead and check that out. All right, and finally, let's dive into these new moon writing prompts. So what I will do is I will read out the writing prompts, and you can also find them in the video description. If you have your Auralign astrology planner, you can go ahead and flip on over to the dedicated new moon ritual page so we can write this out together. And by the way, not only is there a BOGO sale on the planner, but whether or not you have the planner, we will actually be doing a spring seasonal reflections live stream. Woo! Okay, so this live stream will be happening on Wednesday, the 22nd. And if you have your planner, you will be able to follow along in this dedicated seasonal reflection section. And even if you don't have the planner, I'll be sharing all of the writing prompts so we can journal together. So if that interests you, be sure to hit the notification bell to make sure that you are notified. It will be on the 22nd. I'm gonna go ahead and leave details for that in the video description, so you'll know exactly when that is. But yeah, with that said, let's dive into these writing prompts. What aspects of spring, if any, do you look forward to the most? What does it look like for you to speak your truth this season? Are there any areas of life that could be refreshed or kickstarted? It's okay if there aren't any at all. Moving into this new lunar cycle, an astrological new year, do you have any new intentions or goals? These can be new or existing and in alignment with rest, personal or professional endeavors. All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed those writing prompts, and if any of them popped out to you and you feel called to share with the class what your answers are, what comes to mind, I'd love to hear your take in the comment section below. And before we go, I'm going to go ahead and answer one or two of these writing prompts to catch you up on my life and maybe start some conversation. You know, what it looks like for me to speak my truth this season, it's funny because I wrote this question in alignment with what's going on astrologically, but more recently, I made this connection and I was talking to my fiance Chris about this, and that is that when I was younger, I was so indecisive about a lot of stuff all the time. And I was like, oh, I'm a Gemini. I can't figure it out. And more recently, I have noticed that I had a little bit more indecision. And I was trying to figure out, where is this coming from? I was doing a lot of self-inquiry around it because, it's annoying when you can't just decide on something. And what I realized for myself, and I'm excited to share this with you because I feel like at least one person is going to resonate with this. I realized that my indecision, most of the time, even when I was younger, it came from me wanting to do something, but feeling pulled through obligations, cultural norms, what other people wanted to do something else. And it wasn't very clear to me because I hadn't gained clarity around what was influencing me to begin with and separating what I wanted versus all that other stuff. Because sometimes we might want to do what our friends and family want of us because we want to make them happy. But the root of that calling for us isn't rooted in what we really feel called to do. It's rooted in making other people happy, and then we'll be accepted, and then we'll be happy. And I feel like I've come to that realization a few times in my life, but it wasn't as clear as now. And I just noticed that when I really choose what I want deep down, that's when the most unique, magical things happen. Oftentimes that's a little bit out of my comfort zone, because a lot of our comfort zones can be what is socially normal and what is socially encouraged, accepted, told for us to do, or what the easiest path. Oftentimes that's what's in our comfort zone. And so we can still make that choice and sometimes be happy. But when we are not only clear about like, oh, I actually really want to do this, but we also understand it's going to be out of our comfort zone. Our brain's going to make up reasons to give up or not do it. It can oftentimes make us feel a lot more comfortable doing it because we know the nature of the beast. So yeah, I hope that me answering these questions makes you feel a little less alone if any of it resonated with you, or maybe spark some ideas for how you want to set intentions moving forward. But either way, I want to thank you for making it to the end of the video. And if you did, I invite you to comment 3 flame emojis, because we got the fire burning, the sun is out a little longer, and there's just an energy rising as the temperatures warm and we get into these new seasons. And yeah, just a friendly reminder, we're going to do the live stream on the 22nd. Times and information will be in the video description. As soon as I figure it out, if you do not see the time for the live stream, it's because I haven't figured it out yet. But if you have your notifications on, you'll be notified when it happens. But it will be the 22nd in the afternoon, evening time, mountain time for me. What a beautiful way to celebrate the spring equinox by getting an astrological planner for the astrological new year. As mentioned before, we're doing a BOGO sale that's still going on. We have sold out of literally every single planner other than the rose colored planner. So actually I'm gonna see if there's maybe a few more black planners. But yeah, if you have been on the fence, or if you're like, I really think my friend might like this, and maybe you just want the wall calendar or something like that, a little something for you, something for them, be sure to get it, because you also get notifications for all the top astrological events of this new year. So that's really fun. But anyway, I digress. With that said, I will leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey, not the destination. All right, friends, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.